And this video I will be touching upon many different subjects, but it will be about the end-time madness and what I'd call the collective paranoid schizophrenia that we see in the world today, and also where we are going as we come to the end of this year and starting the next decade. But if you have not listened to my other video, which is called the Archons and the Truth About Schizophrenia, you should definitely check that one out first, because I will not repeat everything here, and you need a proper context to understand what I'm talking about. So you should stop this video and then check out the Truth About Schizophrenia first. That being said, I will start with this video. So the world has been splitting apart ever since Trump won. That was the big start of the whole split of the two realities, the ascending reality and the descending reality. And it's all coming to a head this year, because this is the year when we're going to have a final, not a final split, but at least a very distinct split between two different realities. And it's going to be a glass wall between the ascending reality and the descending reality, which means you will not have to deal with all the craziness. It will fall into the background after this year is finished, basically. So we are in the middle of the great storm now, and it will go on for a while more, but when it's over, a lot is going to be changing very quickly. But let's first start a little bit about the history of how this Archon hierarchy came to rule this planet. As far as I've gathered, it started around the time of Atlantis, or after the fall of Atlantis, basically, around 25,000 years ago. That's according to Bashar, at least. So that was the big fall. It's called a fall in the Bible, when you fall from grace, which it was when humanity decided on a collective level to become separated from source and experience themselves as separate beings, individuals separated from reality and from nature and from everything, from the cosmos. And that led to more and more separation, and also eventually more negativity because of the separation. When you don't think you're part of the whole, you can much more easily do negative stuff to other people and other beings, because you don't see them as yourself. So this is how the negativity started to come into the world, and with that came the Archons. Because negativity being generated has to be neutralized somehow. So when you have a planet generating a lot of negativity, it automatically attracts the Archon hierarchy on the 4D, fourth dimensional level, on the astral plane level. And that's, becomes a reinforcing mechanism, because the more Archons you get into the system, the more they will want people to generate negativity so they can have more food. So you have like a self-reinforcing negative spiral of self-destruction and destruction and negativity, basically, which is what has been going on for a while on this planet. And then, a certain percentage of humanity, they just wanted to worship these negative beings, the Archon hierarchy. So they became the rulers of the physical world, because they lives in a symbiotic relationship with the Archon hierarchy. That is how the whole thing started. So they became, because they live in a symbiotic relationship, they will basically provide the Archons with as much food as they want, by creating as much negativity as possible, and setting up a whole system which automatically generates a lot of negativity and fear and all these things, which has been the system that has been ruling this planet for so long. And then the archons will obviously they will help these people who dedicate themselves to giving them food, to creating the food source. They will help those ruling elites to stay in power, and they will probably help them with a lot of intel and how to execute plans and maybe technologies and all sorts of stuff, so they can continue doing what they're doing. So the whole thing is just a self-reinforcing symbiotic relationship between the higher level archons and the global Luciferian cabal. So what we are seeing today is, when everything's split apart, is that a certain percentage of humanity has freed themselves to such a degree from the grip of the archons that it created a split, and Trump winning was a symbol of that split starting. And the split is going to be much more evident at the end of this year and the coming decade. So that's why you see a certain percentage of the population has gone crazy since Trump won. It's because the archons have been doubling and quadrupling and tripling down on everybody who is still deep in their grips, deep in their claws. And that is basically what you can be called the leftists, the Democrats, and these people. All the people you see going crazy these days, they are dominated and deeply infested by the archons. And that they have in common that they are all in victim consciousness. They're all below level 200 and they're basically the average level of consciousness of the whole movement, or the whole descending people is around 150 on the scale of consciousness. So they are circling the drain, and if you have a victim consciousness, you also have an abuser consciousness, because that's the other side of the same coin. So the elite, this Luciferian elite and the cabal, the globalist cabal, they are the abusers, and then the people who, identify with the system and identify with the victimhood, they are the victims of the abusing system. But then you have all the people who have gone out of victim consciousness, and they are the ascending part of humanity. They calibrate at least at 330 on the scale of consciousness, at the lowest level you can have to ascend, because that means you're just a little bit more positive and integrated than negative. So that's the explanation of the end-time madness that we're seeing play out all around us these days. It's because the archons are the collective. Archons are like a collective hive mind, and they're going completely crazy because they are like a wounded animal, and their food source is being depleted by the day, and they have to double down and create much more negativity in the people they still control. It's like in the Matrix, every human being is being grown in these chambers and used as a battery. But when you free yourself from that chamber, you're no longer a food source for the machines. You're no longer a power source for the machines, because you freed yourself, and that's basically how it works in reality too. So that is why, the people who were already in victim consciousness, it wasn't that obvious before, but now it's much more obvious, because the archons are just bothering them a lot more and using them and pulling up all the negativity they can inside them, so they can get enough food, because they used to feed on so much more people, but now they have just half the population or something like that to feed on to that degree. So that's sort of how I see the anti-madness and what's causing all the craziness you see from the Democrats and the leftists. And where is the media in all this? Because the media is obviously playing a big role, and the higher ups in the media are part of the elite who consciously worship the negative archons. And then the rest of the people working in the media, at least most of them, are just like the leftists. They're just in victim consciousness, the same mentality as the leftists who go crazy and do riots and all these things. And the media basically resembles the voices that the schizophrenic people hear on a collective level. And that's obviously because the media is dominated by archons, because archons know how powerful the media is to create negativity in the world. So that's their highest priority is always to dominate the media, along with the governments, obviously. But especially the media is important. So the media has always been infested by archons, and now they're using it for all it's worth to create as much negativity and fear as possible with the virus and all these things. So basically, the media is like the schizophrenic voices that the patients in mental hospitals hear, but it's happening on a collective level. And the media and these voices and the media is seeking to gaslight people into a fake, paranoid reality, a reality that creates as much fear and negativity as possible, because that's what the voices is doing with the people who are schizophrenic. That's where the paranoia comes from in the term schizophrenic paranoia, because it's the modus operandi of these voices to create a false narrative about the reality that these people find themselves in, a reality in which there's always somebody chasing them, and somebody's trying to kill them, or the cops are coming after them, or they create all these realities that generates as much fear as possible, and they tailor-suit the narrative they create to the weak spots of each person, which is why the disease can seemingly have many different the craziness that the patient is displaying can seem very different, because the narrative will be fitted to his worst fears and what will make him generate as much fear as possible and as much negativity as possible. So the media is doing the same thing on a collective level, and the leftists, especially the people on the leftists side, they are falling for it and being led by it, and living in a very paranoid reality at this point. So it's all a self-enforcing, reinforcing mechanism and self-reinforcing negative spiral they're circling and going down the drain, basically, while the rest of humanity who is not caught up in it, they are ascending away from it. So my best advice, as I talked about before in a different video, is to completely disengage from all this media and the drama going on, and do not be hooked or connected to people who are drowning in this. That includes family and friends, even close family and close friends, because you cannot let yourself drown in this whirlpool of craziness if you want to ascend. It's much more important that you just cut those people out, because you have to act in favor of your higher destiny. Even if that's hard to do, this year is too important. You cannot screw it up, because this is the most crucial year in a long time, maybe in your whole life. Because how you fare through this storm will determine the rest of your life, basically. It's like you're going through a prism, and where you hit the prism on the way in is going to determine how you come out of the prism on the other side, and which trajectory you're going to have. So that is really important to know, that you have to think mostly about yourself, and it's not egotistical to take care of yourself first and not be involved in anyone's drama and being dragged down by anything like that. Because right now we are in what, if you know about the hero's journey, which is the blueprint for all the Hollywood movies, and basically all stories ever told almost are based either consciously or unconsciously on this blueprint that they use for Hollywood manuscripts and movies. I've talked about the hero's journey and the spiritual journey in 2 videos you can check out also, but you find them in my channel. But right now we are towards the end of the journey, which is the all is lost, or the dark night of the soul beat of the blueprint. And this is where the hero is basically drowning. You have many scenes in movies where the hero it looks like everything is going down the drain, and the hero is underwater. He's probably going to die because he's been underwater for 2 minutes. And, that's where we are collectively at this point. And then suddenly the hero resurfaces and, he suddenly has renewed energy and he's full of original ideas because he basically had a death rebirth moment. So his old self died and his new self was born, and his new self knows how to deal with the bad guys and how to storm the castle and basically defeat the bad guy. So we're at the all is lost Dark Night of the Soul point, and the hero is about to resurface, and that's probably going to be around the time when the first major arrest comes. That's when the hero resurfaces, and that's when the bad guys are being taken down, and things are going to move really quickly. At the end of most movies, things are moving really fast. The bad guys are suddenly defeated in a massive high tempo speed chase, and then everything is over and a new world is created. Because the hero has been through a journey, just like humanity has been through a hero's journey, in an upside down reality. And then his ordinary reality that he had before will be synthesized with the upside down reality he has been through. And then a third reality on a higher level will be created out of that. And that third reality is going to be born when this storm is over, most likely at the end of this year and starting early next year. So the good guys are about to win, and we are about to enter into a completely new reality, which is going to be a combination of where we came from and everything we have been through collectively for many thousands of years. And it's going to be very different from anything you can imagine at this point. And that's when I think the first contact is going to start to happen. But it's not going to start to happen. The UFOs and the spaceships are not going to land in 2020 or in 2021. That's not what I'm talking about. I think it's going to be like what happened to me, but with millions of people experiencing the same thing. What happened to me, I talk about in a previous video. It's called ET, higher mind contact or something like that, or encounter. So I was contacted by this being who called himself Bashar, and he guided me through a lot of healing, and many things happened. I talk about that in my previous video. You can check it out. But anyway, I think that's going to happen. He will come back to me. He said he will be my guide from now on. He will come back. He will return to me and be my guide, and millions of people will have similar experiences. That's how the first contact will happen. It's not going to be landing of UFOs and physical contact at this point, but it will be telepathic contact, and it's going to happen most likely. I think even probably could happen within 2020, towards the end of the year, or at least early next year. I think it's going to happen within this year, but it's going to happen when the storm, but not before the storm is over, because the whole collective has to calm down. We have to go through this split to a larger degree first before they can start to contact us. And I think Bashar hinted at this in one of his recent sessions. He talked about the eye of the needle and these things, and he said that when all this is over with, we are in the middle of it now, basically, and it's going to last some more months, maybe towards the end of the year. And then after that, we can contact you that much more. He said something like that. Like after that storm is finished, we can talk to you so much more or something. He just hinted to that things are going to happen. They're going to have first contact telepathically. As far as I can gather it, it's going to be a lot of people are going to be guided into different roles of teaching the rest of humanity what has been really going on, because the bulk of the ascending humanity they are high enough level. They are above 330 on the scale, so they are high enough to ascend, but many of them don't have a clue what has been really going on, and they're not consciously a part of the Ascension movement and the truth movement, but they're still, or maybe they're just part of the truth movement about conspiracy stuff, but they're not really into spirituality. and they don't know anything about that. So millions of people are going to be needed as guides and teachers in the coming decades, and that's going to be the people the ETs are going to contact first, I believe. And I'm going to be one of those, as far as he told me. In fact, he told me I was going to be world famous in the coming decade. But we'll see about that. But anyway, that is how I see the immediate future play out. And you should definitely not lose hope, even though it looks bleak right now, because that's the classic, you know, every movie has that moment when everything looks like it's going to hell, but then suddenly it changed. It changed from all is lost to suddenly storming of the castle and beating up the bad guys and winning the whole thing. And we are right at the cusp of that moment now. So it's a really exciting year to be in and to see how it plays out the rest of the year, and not least the next decade, because the next decade is going to be a completely changed energy. It's going to be a reality free from the archons. They're going to be pushed into the side of the glass wall that's going to be splitting the ascending and the descending realities. So the archons are going to go with the people who are going down the drain, basically, and descending, and they're not going to be in the reality of the ascending planet, at least not to the degree that they have been now. There might be some of them left until all the negativity is gone, but they're not going to be dominating like they have been doing for so long. And you're not going to have to dealing with all the leftist craziness you see now is going to be in the background. It's going to just disappear because you're going to be so busy building the new Earth in the coming decade with all sorts of technologies and exciting things happening that you have a lot to look forward to when we come out of this storm. And with that, I just remind you that you just need to let go of all the drama stuff that goes on and allow it, have a compassionate distance to it, kind of, and do not let yourself be dragged down into it.